Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Joy. In today's video, I will guide you through a pie chart test from Cambridge IELTS 14, and I will present two sample essays with different perspectives. More importantly, I will highlight a typical irrelevant comparison often made when describing pie charts. Additionally, I will provide a brief summary of the graphs and charts we have discussed so far, including line graphs and bar charts. This brief comparison will help you understand their differences and enhance your writing strategy. Let's dive right in. Before we examine the prompt, I will introduce the common features of a pie chart. Understanding these basic elements will help you interpret and analyze pie charts more effectively. Tip 1. Common features of a pie chart. A pie chart is a circular chart that represents data using slices or sectors of a circle. Each slice represents a portion, a percentage of a whole, and the entire circle represents 100%. Or the total of the data being visualized. Pie charts are commonly used to show the composition or distribution of a set of categories or data points relative to the whole. The most distinctive feature of a pie chart is its circular shape, which represents a complete data set. Now let's compare line graph, bar chart, and pie chart from three key aspects: structure, purpose, and writing focus. This comparison will clarify the differences between these chart types and guide you on what to focus on when describing them. While all data can be displayed in a table, tables are not ideal for observing trends, changes, differences, and similarities. To make data easier to track and analyze, we use various graphs and charts, each with its own unique purpose and advantages. First, line graph. Structure. Line graph consists of a series of points connected by lines, where each point represents data at a specific time or interval. Purpose. Line graph demonstrates trends over time. It means continuous data. There is always time in line graph. Writing focus. Because line graphs tracking changes, comparisons, and relationships over a period of time. Therefore, the writing focus usually includes increases, decreases, and fluctuations. Bar chart. Structure. Bar charts utilize rectangular bars to represent data. The length of each bar is proportional to the value it represents. Bars can be displayed horizontally or vertically. The purpose. Bar charts compares quantities across different categories, not always including time in bar charts. Writing focus. Bar charts comparing discrete categories or groups. This means your writing focus usually including rankings, increases, decreases, and proportional relationships. For example, one value being twice or half another. And proportional relationships. Pie chart. Structure. Pie chart is a circular chart divided into slices, where each slice represents a category's proportion of the whole. And the purpose. Pie chart usually illustrates how a whole is divided into parts. Writing focus. When writing about pie chart, always demonstrating the percentages or fractional distribution of categories within a total, or comparing changes across multiple pie charts. In summary, line graphs are used for illustrating trends over time. Bar charts are used for comparing quantities across different categories, and pie charts are used for showing the proportional breakdown of a whole. Understanding these distinctions will help you avoid making irrelevant comparisons. Stage 1. Read the prompt and the graph. Step 1. Identifying key information. By key information, we mean the topic, the unit of measurement, the time frame, and the slices, which means the categories. Now let's read the prompt. The charts below show the average percentages in typical meals of 3 types of nutrients, all of which may be unhealthy if eaten too much. This topic focuses on the average nutrient consumption across 4 meals. Since the prompt does not mention a time span, we will use the simple present tense throughout the essay. Next, consider the instructions. As always, our 2 main goals here are select and compare. First, select the important information. Second, make accurate comparisons. Now let's read the graph. Start by examining the title of the graph. Always remember, the title is an excellent resource for paraphrasing in your introduction. The title here says, average percentage of sodium, saturated fats, and added sugars in typical meals consumed in the USA. This title specifies the 3 nutrient categories: sodium, saturated fats, and added sugars, and indicates that the data is from the country USA. Then read the 3 charts. First, let's check the units of measurement. Unlike other chart types, pie charts always use percentages. From my previous practice test videos, you might recall that percentages and proportions appear frequently across all chart types. Mastering accurate and advanced expressions for percentage is essential for writing task 1. For more advanced vocabulary on expression proportions, don't forget to check out my dedicated vocabulary guide. Second, let's check the categories and slices. Each pie chart represents one of the 3 nutrients: sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar. Each chart is divided into 4 slices, corresponding to the following meal types: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. By identifying the units and categories, we have now gathered all the critical details. Final tip. By the end of this reading step, you should have a clear understanding of what the pie chart represents and the significance of each slice. Step 2. Selected important informations. Selecting is not easy. It's key to successful comparisons. We need to mention all the informations on the graph, but emphasize the important ones. So, how do we decide what information is more important? Here is a simple guide. First, identify the largest and smallest category of the whole. It means you need to identify the categories with the largest slice or the highest percentages, and the category with the smallest slice, which is the lowest percentages. First, let's check out the largest categories. In the first chart, which shows the composition of sodium, the largest slice is dinner at 45%. In the second chart, it's also dinner at 37%, and in the third chart, the largest portion is snacks at 42%. Next, let's identify the smallest categories. In the first chart, breakfast and snacks both represent the smallest slices at 14%. In the second chart, breakfast is the smallest at 16%. And in the third chart, breakfast is again the smallest at 16%. Now we have some basic information. These details will be a valuable source for our later comparisons. However, we won't compare them just yet. We will proceed step by step. Last, check out the rest of the slices. In the first chart, lunch is in the middle at 29%. In the second chart, snacks and lunch are similar at 21% and 26%, respectively. In the third chart, dinner is the middle value at 23%. Now we have covered all the informations and will emphasize the largest and smallest categories. We are ready to plan the ideas. But before that, I want to share some basic comparison tips to help you generate and organize your ideas faster. Tip 2. How to compare pie charts. Comparing accurately is not as hard as it seems. First, understand the logic behind these comparisons. Second, if you are running out of time, you can memorize these sentence patterns to improve your efficiency. Here are several effective methods for comparing pie charts. First, compare with the whole. Illustrate the percentage distribution of categories within a total, which means 100%, in the most basic method. Here are some sentence patterns you might need. For example, we can say dinner represents 43% of sodium and lunch accounts for 42% of added sugar. However, while this method is simple, it does not fully showcase your lexical range. Second, compare two categories with the whole. For instance, you can say dinner comprise 43% of sodium, while breakfast and snacks make up 14%. This structure is more sophisticated and frequently used in writing. While this approach applies to all charts, it is particularly useful for pie charts. Third, compare between categories. This is the most important method for comparing pie charts. There are four main types of category comparisons. First, direct comparisons. Second, multiplicative comparisons. Third, difference-based comparisons. Fourth, equal comparisons. Let's dive into the details. Direct comparison. Use phrases like higher than, lower than, or equal to highlight differences between categories. Here are some sentence patterns. For instance, you can say dinner accounted for a significant larger share of sodium compared to the other three meals. Or dinner comprised a smaller portion of added sugar than snacks. Use these structures to emphasize the relative size of categories without always specifying exact percentages. Multiplicative comparisons. This approach focuses on how much larger or smaller one category is compared to another. Here are some sentence patterns. For instance, we can say sodium intake at dinner is more than 3 times that of breakfast. Difference-based comparisons. When the data allows, you can quantify and emphasize the differences between two categories. Here are some sentence patterns. You can use exceeded by or fell short of by to describe the magnitude of the differences between categories. For instance, we can say, the percentage of snacks exceeded the other three meals by at least 20% in added sugar. Sodium intake at dinner is 14% higher than at lunch. Last, equal comparisons. When two categories share the same percentage, highlight their similarity. You can use phrases like equal proportion, the same percentage, or an identical share. Here are some sentence patterns. For instance, we can say, a similar percentage of snacks and breakfast accounted for sodium both at 14%. The last one, highlight dominant categories. Emphasize the most noticeable, largest, and smallest percentage is effective in writing. Use phrases like dominates, comprise a majority to describe these categories. Here are some sentence patterns and phrases you can use. The majority of, a significant portion, a relative small percentage, a minority of, a negligible fraction of. For instance, here we can say, dinner stands out. as the predominant meal in terms of nutrient consumption, contributing 43% of sodium, 37% of saturated fat, and 23% of added sugar. Now we have covered the fundamental rules for making comparisons. Let's proceed to planned ideas. Stage 2. Plan your ideas. Planning is the thinking stage where you generate and organize ideas. Writing becomes faster and easier when you have a clear plan. We will follow the classic full paragraph structures: introduction, overview, detail paragraph 1, and detail paragraph 2. For introduction, we just paraphrase the topic. For overview, we describe the most obvious data without figures. For detail paragraphs, we present and compare key details and figures. Let's start from the introduction. The introduction is quite simple. Paraphrase the topic. Of course, in order to make the paragraph a little bit longer, you can always include some basic information from the graphs as well. So my plan will be intro, paraphrase the topic and categories. Overview. In the overview, no figures. First, I will describe the basic information of the 3 pie charts, which is all nutrients are present in all 4 meals. Second, I will describe the largest share of each pie. That's what a pie chart made for. So, write the plan down. Overview. First, 3 nutrients in 4 meals. Second, dinner largest in sodium and saturated fat, snack largest in added sugar. Let's move on to detailed paragraphs. As we know, detailed paragraphs are the key for grouping and analyzing your ideas. You could choose the aspect you like to describe the graph. By perspective, we have different options. We can organize this paragraph using meals or nutrients as the main focus. So, I will show you Plan A and Plan B. Plan A, we will describe it by meals. Plan B, we will describe it by nutrients. Plan A. We will focus on the largest slices, which means the dominant meals and their comparisons. So first, dinner ranks first in sodium and saturated fat, and the second in added sugar. Then, snacks dominates added sugar, exceeding dinner by nearly 20%, but are the smallest contributor of sodium. Last, snacks are slightly larger than breakfast in saturated fat. So my plan will be: Sentence 1. Dinner of sodium, fat, rank 1, of sugar, rank 2. Sentence 2. Snack rank 1 in sugar, more than dinner, but small in sodium. Sentence 3. Snack small in fat, more than breakfast. Now let's move on to detail paragraph 2. Continue by describing the remaining categories with meaningful comparisons. Plan A. We will talk about breakfast first, then lunch. My plan will be: highlight the smaller contributor like breakfast and lunch. First, breakfast consistently provides the smallest proportion across all 3 nutrients: 14 of sodium, 16 of saturated fat, 16 of added sugar. Then, lunch is moderate. It contributes 29% of sodium, 26% of saturated fat, and 19% of added sugar. Then, sodium from lunch is twice as much as breakfast. So here is my plan. Breakfast, the smallest of sodium, 14, 16 of fat, 16 of sugar. Second, lunch sodium 29, fat 26, sugar 19. Third, sodium lunch doubled breakfast, rank 2. Now move on to Plan B. How to change the perspective? Quite simple. The subject will be the nutrients instead of meals. First, compare sodium with saturated fat. They have similar patterns. Dinner being the largest share and the breakfast being the smallest share. Second, Lunch ranks 2, snack ranks 3 for both meals. So we will compare their pattern in detail paragraph 1. Now let's write the plan down. Sentence 1, sodium and fat similar pattern. Dinner largest, breakfast least. Sentence 2, lunch rank 2, snacks rank 3. Now for plan B, detail paragraph 2, we will describe the nutrients. We will emphasize differences in how each nutrient is distributed. First, we can compare added sugar with sodium and saturated fat patterns. The dominant share change from dinner to snack. Then, snacks, the largest source, almost double that of dinner. Lunch consistently holds the middle position across all 3 nutrients. Last, breakfast is the lowest contributor in all categories. Now, here is how I'm gonna write my plan. Sentence 1, sugar pattern different, snack largest, sugar pattern different, snack largest. Sentence 2, snack largest, double dinner and breakfast the least. Sentence 3, lunch middle for all. We use keywords to plan. When talking about describe from the nutrient perspective, many students will write like this. Describe 3 charts separately. No comparison between same categories. These are what we call irrelevant comparison. The planning provides a clear comparison and highlights the most important data. Now I'm ready to transform these notes and cues into a well-organized essay. Move on to detail paragraph 1. Plan A. Based on the plan, I will write my first sentence. Dinner stands out as the predominant meal in terms of nutrient consumption, contributing 43% of sodium, 37% of saturated fat, and 23% of added sugar. Here, I use phrases in terms of to refer to specific categories. Then, I vary my language by using synonyms for comprising, such as accounting for, constituting, and representing. Sentence 2. However, it is interesting to note that snacks, although comprising only a small proportion of sodium, 14%, exceed dinner in added sugar consumption, representing a significant 42%. Here, I use however to introduce a contrasting point which improves coherence. Then I highlight minor categories with phrases like a small proportion. Then emphasize direct comparison with the verb like exceed. In the detailed paragraphs, always include specific figures for each category to ensure clarity and precision. Sentence 3. Snacks also contain 21% of the total saturated fat, which is slightly higher than breakfast. Here, I use precise figures like 21% to ensure clarity and accuracy, and direct compare categories with simple phrases like higher than. Detail paragraph 2. Plan A. Sentence 1. In terms of breakfast, it represents the smallest proportion of nutrient intake, accounting for only 14% of sodium, 16% of saturated fat, and 16% of added sugar. In terms of, again, introduce my subject clearly and effectively. Then, emphasize the minimal contribution by providing precise figures. Sentence 2. Lunch, on the other hand, shows a noticeable increase in nutrient intake, with sodium making up 29%, saturated fat 26%, and added sugar 19%. On the other hand, signals a contrast, enhance cohesion and coherence. Always use conjunctions and transitions. Sentence 3. Notably, the sodium intake at lunch is more than double that of breakfast, making it the second highest after dinner. Here, a multiplicative comparison. Double the breakfast. When you don't know what to compare, you can always use our sentence pattern as your cues. Ranking is also important. If you would like to know more expression about ranking, let me know in the comment. Now let's move on to Plan B. Sentence 1. When comparing the intake of these 3 nutrients, both sodium and saturated fat share a similar pattern, with dinner being the largest source and breakfast contributing the least. Here, I directly state my comparison at the beginning. Then, share a similar pattern is a nice pattern you should try in your essay. Emphasize the similarity of sodium and saturated fat. There is no specific figures in this sentence, don't worry. Let's keep writing. Sentence 2. Specifically, 43% of sodium and 37% of saturated fat come from dinner, while breakfast accounts for only 14% and 16% respectively. Provide specific figures to support my general statement. If a sentence becomes too long with both comparisons and figures, you can always divide it into 2 separate sentences. Respectively is also an important word you should remember and try to use it in your writing. Sentence 3. Lunch ranks second for both nutrients with 29% of sodium and 26% of saturated fat. 5% more saturated fat than snacks, which provide 21%. Use ranking expressions like rank second to describe relative positions. Include simple direct comparisons with numerical differences. Plan C. Here I will show you an irrelevant comparison paragraph. This paragraph separates the 2 categories, sodium and saturated fat, rather than comparing them directly. Avoid this mistake in your writing to maintain coherence and clarity. Now let's move on to Plan B, detail paragraph 2. However, the consumption of added sugar contrasts sharply with the other 2 nutrients. While dinner remains the dominant source of sodium and saturated fat, snacks become the primary contributor to added sugar intake, representing a significant 42%. This figure is nearly double that of dinner, 23%, and more than twice that of breakfast, 16%, which again ranks the lowest. Lunch holds the intermediate position across the 3 nutrients, but is particularly notable for its sodium intake, which is more than double that of breakfast. First, I use however to introduce contrasts and reinforce logical progression. While is an excellent tool for crafting complex sentences, combine 2 simple ideas for a more sophisticated structure. And always support your claims with specific figures to ensure clarity and precision. Finally, we have successfully completed 2 essays. Unlike map diagrams, the 2 plans for pie charts are fundamentally similar, differing mainly in perspective and subject emphasis. After you finish an essay, always refining your vocabulary and sentence structures. It's really necessary to analyze your essay after you have finished it. Okay, that's all for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, I highly recommend you check out my video on map questions, IELTS Writing Task 1, for more advanced tips and techniques. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell for notifications so you will never miss an update. See you in the next video. Bye-bye!